In the world of animation, Disney has had a lot of time to solidify themselves as a staple, with classic animated movies spanning the past 100 years. This has led them to have 3 unique channels to air their shows on, with the Disney Channel and Disney Junior both holding things for what many would consider a younger audience. Disney XD, on the other hand, is aimed towards older children and younger teens, hosting all kinds of content. With many cartoons on this channel, it makes sense to have many villains to talk about. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Disney XD Villains, evil to most evil. A couple of caveats are necessary before we get started. You may notice this has a lot of crossover with our Disney Channel animated villain script from a while back, and that's because Disney was known to simulcast shows on both the Disney Channel and Disney XD, but some shows became permanently housed on XD. So shows like The Owl House and The Ghost and Molly McGee, which do air on XD, aren't included because they're considered part of the Disney Channel. We also won't be considering shows that were required to air on XD but weren't made by Disney, like Naruto Shippuden or Jimmy Two Shoes. It's also worth noting that we'll only be considering one villain per series, especially considering some shows have dozens of villains. And finally, we'll be excluding the Marvel content that aired on XD, simply so it doesn't overtake our list. Alright, with our rules out of the way, let's start with the characters that are bad to evil. The least evil character on our list is Brad Batowski from Kick Batowski Suburban Daredevil. Brad is the main antagonist of the show, but he's not really all that bad of a guy, just kind of an annoying older brother who's more of a nuisance. Brad constantly gets in the way of Kick's mini stunts, referring to him as Dillweed and generally trying to intimidate and embarrass the Suburban Daredevil.
No one stands between me and my driver's license.
Brad, like the other villains in Kick Batowski, are mostly just rude or annoying but never really evil. Plus, being a teenager, he's very focused on his image and doesn't want Kick upstaging him, but we can't call that evil. Next is Hildy Gloom from the 7D. Hildy is the wife of Grim Gloom and a powerful witch based on the evil queen from the original Snow White story. Unlike the queen, she's kind of a brat who likes to whine and cry to get the things she wants, being spoiled and obnoxious. Between her and Grim, she's the brains of the duo and comes up with evil plans, most of which aren't all that deadly. Hildy is more of a nuisance than anything, mostly being there to annoy the titular 7D. She can't rank any lower than this because while she's bad, she's not all that evil. Next is part-time villain Ripon from Pen Zero Part-Time Hero. Ripon is an alien from a far-off planet that is employed as both a high school art teacher and a part-time villain. Ripon is interesting because while he seems like a nuisance and not really all that dangerous due to incompetent plans, in reality he's a bit more evil than one would believe. First, he wants to become a feared, full-time villain, and proves that by being the one responsible for Pen's parents disappearing. He sent them to a dimension known as the most dangerous world imaginable, and throughout the series constantly tries to stop Pen Zero and friends. However, he can't fall much lower because by the end of the series, he changes sides, staying behind with Larry to close the portal and save the multiverse. Despite his sacrifice and general heroic shift, he's still done some heinous things, hence his ranking. Next is the bad bunny Yuck from Yin Yang Yo. Formed from Yin's bossiness and Yang's aggression, Yuck is a level 5 Wu-Fu warrior who wants to become the strongest Wu-Fu knight ever. Yuck is a being created specifically to strive for power, and his bad actions can be pretty easily explained because of it. He spends most of his appearances trying to slay Yin, Yang, and Master Yo, or being a trickster of some kind. He pretended to be Yin's boyfriend, only to betray her. His final appearance also features him trying to feed on Yin and Yang's shared aura before disappearing forever.
Oh, I'm getting weaker. Trick me.
The problem with Yuck is that in the episode, Upstanding Yuck, he tries to become a good guy like Yin and Yang, but turns evil after being constantly attacked by the other bunnies. This implies that he's willing to become a good guy, but is quelled by his creators. Sure, he wants to assumedly murder the other bunnies, but the fact that he's willing to change ranks him here. Next is Commander Pyre from Star Wars Resistance. Pyre, as the name suggests, is a commander of a legion of stormtroopers who would be stationed on the Colossus. He initially came up with the plan of working with pirates, essentially leading to their eventual defeat. He's also responsible for supposedly killing Kel and Ella, although their deaths were fake. Pyre is a relatively high-ranking soldier and is responsible for several heinous actions. However, while it doesn't absolve all of his crimes, he was working entirely under orders. Whether he joined the First Order voluntarily or not is unknown, and if he knew what that would entail is also unknown. However, we do have to vilify him for his crimes, even if they were enacted on someone else's orders. Next is the Sorcerer from Randy Cunningham, 9th grade ninja. The Sorcerer was once a poor peddler who lived far in the past, before finding one of the mystical chaos pearls that caused him to become very powerful. The Sorcerer became a very powerful, dangerous, ruthless, and power-hungry individual, feeding off negative emotions like fear and anger. He's been facing off against the Ninja Clan for hundreds of years, and will do just about anything to deal with them. However, there are a few saving graces regarding the Sorcerer. First, he shows some human emotion, being romantically involved with the Sorceress, and shows intense happiness when she arrives again from her banishment, which means that he does have some semblance of humanity in him. This is also the case because once he's defeated, he merges with his human self and dies peacefully. The Sorcerer is an evil entity, there's no doubt about that. However, there's enough humanity left in him to leave him here on our list. The supervillain Obake from Big Hero 6 the series is next. Obake is a consistent enemy of Big Hero 6, being a cold-hearted scientist who's focused entirely on his own fame by destroying San Francisco and rebuilding it in his own image. His plan is to cause an apocalyptic event so that people would fear and even respect him. He's tried to create a surveillance state by setting up security cameras everywhere in San Francisco. He's also wickedly smart, hacking into Alistair Cray's security cameras, tricking the borderline genius Honey Lemon into giving him the diary he needs for his plans. He tries to trick Hero into becoming a student while subsequently trying to destroy San Francisco.
I'm a big fan.
He does die among his work and lets Baymax go, so he isn't destroyed as well, saying he was satisfied with the scare so Baymax could leave. Obake is a terrorist and an evil person, no doubt, but he can't fall any lower for one major reason. When he was younger, he created a device that self-destructed, injuring the part of his brain that holds his moral compass, being unable to tell right from wrong. Next, we have Bradford Buzzard from DuckTales 2017. He's the chairman of McDuck Enterprises, alongside his Buzzard pals Buford and Bentley. He's the founder of FOUL and the archenemy of Clan McDuck, specifically Scrooge's most personal archenemy. Throughout the series, he's constantly arguing with Scrooge and trying to stop his adventures by cutting funding. However, he doesn't really take up a villainous role until Season 3, where we find out he's formed a group called FOUL to stop Scrooge and obtain his grandmother's lost treasures. In some instances, Bradford is not nearly as bad, being appalled at Glomgold's disrespect at Scrooge's fake funeral and letting Scrooge search for Della for over 10 years. However, good moments don't change how he acts during his true villain arc in Season 3. He wants to slay the McDuck family, including the children, and doesn't show any sort of remorse for the harm he causes. He also hates the other members of FOUL, arguing with Black Heron and modifying Steelbeak's iconic beak to clamp down on his command. He's also a coward, running from fights to save his own skin, and is dismissive of even being a villain, which is its own can of worms. Bradford hates being referred to as a villain, and will blame everyone but himself for the damage and destruction he causes, even blaming the Ducks when the Sword of Swanstein reflects his base desires and makes him into a base villain. The only thing stopping him from falling lower on our list is his standards. He doesn't want to destroy the world or society, he wants to rule it from the shadows, and knows when some items are too dangerous to be used. Bradford, despite his efforts to be called otherwise, is indeed a bad guy and a villain, hence his ranking. Next is Abraham Kane from Motor City. Kane is a businessman and the owner of Kane Co. in the titular Motor City. He hates cars and everything that has to do with them, saying they give people freedom, which he can't stand. Kane plans to lay waste to Motor City, so he can expand Detroit into Detroit Deluxe. He's maniacal and willing to do anything for business purposes, and while we never see him actively kill anyone, it's heavily implied that he's willing to do so if that will help him in his conquest. He despises dissent and acts almost like a dictator, having many fascist tendencies, including planning a literal genocide on Motor City. Sure, he cares about his daughter, but we don't think that can forgive his plans. Next, we have a Star Wars villain, the Grand Inquisitor from Star Wars Rebels. He's a member of the Empire during the many years it was around, being the leader of a group of highly trained Inquisitors designed to hunt down and either kill or kidnap Jedi. He leads this group with an iron fist and is responsible with a wide variety of war crimes and murders, perpetuating a genocide of Jedi and torturing and brainwashing other Jedi to become Inquisitors.
Ready to die?
He worked with a cold, analytic mind, full of dark intentions and a lot of information on how to kill Jedi. He knew how to strike fear, anger, and intense doubt into his enemies, utilizing his knowledge of Jedi and his special lightsaber to trick them. He was filled with intense devotion to the Empire and his master, more than willing to kill and slaughter for them, being responsible for the deaths of countless Jedi. However, while he worked on the orders of the tyrannical Empire, he was also the leader of a group, giving out his own orders, and we can't dock him any points for what he's done. Next is Derek from Milo Murphy's Law. Derek is the final son of the merciless King Pistachian, who Milo and co dealt with during the battle against the Pistachians. Derek was knocked into the time stream and left back in the year 1955, where he spends years planning his revenge. He disguises himself as an intern to the Dr. Zone show, planning to use the revenue from the show to fund his revenge and forming of an army to use against Milo. He's looking to dominate the Earth and become its ruler, leading to capture and supposed death of all those he imprisons. Derek shows no mercy during his run, and may be worse than his father, sadly, because he's only really a villain in one episode, so we can't rank him any lower. Next is the main villain from Tron Uprising, General Tessler. Tessler is maniacal, sadistic, and full of hatred and rage. He loves toying with traitors and will duress soldiers who bring unwelcome news, leading to their deletion. He is a silver-tongued tyrant who blames all the problems on the renegade. He rules with an iron fist and convinces those under him that his despotic rulings are for the good of the citizens. He shows little to no remorse and has a massive kill count. He makes many of those lower on the list look like good guys by comparison. Tessler definitely deserves this spot on our list. The Bronze Medal of Evil goes to Toffee from Star versus the Forces of Evil. Toffee is an unknown but very powerful individual and the arch-enemy of Queen Moon Butterfly. He was hired by Ludo under the guise of an evil efficiency expert who would help Ludo become much more efficient in his evil plans. However, this is just a trick by Toffee to overtake the small demonic Ludo. Toffee is really intelligent, able to kidnap Marco and orchestrate a plan to fire Ludo's henchman Buffrog. He's able to trick Star into destroying her own wand, letting him become even more powerful. He was even able to manipulate Ludo after he had supposedly died, and by the end of the series, he had committed to destroying all magic in the universe, harming thousands and killing similarly high numbers. Toffee's one of the few successful villains on this list, sure. I mean, he's still killed in the end, but he had fulfilled his plan, which is something most others can't accomplish. The Silver Medal of Evil goes to Lord Dominator from Wander Over Yonder. Lord Dominator is the head supervillain in Wander Over Yonder, and she uses this role to her advantage. She wears very powerful armor that makes her a very silent, intimidating monster that no one knows about. Outside of her armor, she's a fun-loving maniac, full of powerful abilities and manic energy. She's able to force all the villains in the galaxy to be subservient to her, which shows her evil intent and severe power. Unlike others in the series, her goal is not to control the galaxy. Instead, she wants to destroy every planet in her path. Like Toffee, she actually manages to do so, genociding hundreds if not thousands of planets. But this makes her bored and depressed, only to almost befriend Wander, even if she didn't want to admit it. She had slaughtered millions, and the only reason she doesn't grab gold is because, like before, she's overshadowed by a very familiar face. That face belongs to Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls, who gets the Gold Medal of Evil. Bill is the main antagonist throughout the series, and while he only has a handful of episode appearances, he makes the most of it. He's not the only most powerful villain on this list, but definitely the most evil. Bill is responsible for a genocide on a dimensional scale, wiping out all the creatures in his dimension just because he thought they were flat people with flat minds, and then decided to spread chaos throughout the third dimension because he could.
Do you have any idea what I'm like?
Bill's mission statement is to cause chaos just for funsies, and he does it well. He'll kill, possess, or transform any and every person in his path, even his own followers. But that begs the question, which of these malicious monsters are grabbing our various center medals? Our Darwin medal goes to Brad Batowski, mostly because with how obsessed with his status he is. He doesn't seem to realize how popular kick stunts make him. The Lust medal goes to the Sorcerer, who's the only character on this list who really shows any sort of romantic love. And that's towards the Sorceress, so it's kind of by default. Like last time, our Envy medal goes to Obake, who is envious of other famous people, trying to become famous so people would fear and respect him. Taking the Wrath medal is Bill Cipher, who's constantly shown as an angry and annoyed person, blowing up at inconveniences or if someone escapes, jumping straight to murder when the Pines start to run. Earning the Pride Medal is Derek, whose whole shtick is from his father, and becoming a handsome man just to defeat his enemies. He's very prideful. Finally, our Greed Medal goes to Bradford, who's totally obsessed with the finances of the McDuck Corporation, even as a villain. Alright guys, that's it. Let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.